Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking an in-depth look at a figure whose story is, well, far more intricate and dynamic than the headlines often suggest.
Definitely. A leader whose time in office was marked by truly seismic events.
Events that fundamentally reshaped, our nation and the world. We're talking like George W. Bush, the 43rd president of the United States.
And his career saw such dramatic shifts in public perception, didn't it? Makes him a really compelling subject.
It really does. Our mission today is to unpack the key moments, the policies, the challenges that defined his journey.
From his Texas governorship?
Right, through his 2 terms in the White House
Right.
and even his influential post-presidency.
And we're drawing primarily from a pretty comprehensive Wikipedia article for this.
Yeah, it provides a good, structured, factual foundation. Our goal is really to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge, explore the different perspectives presented in the material.
And maybe uncover some surprising facts, too.
Exactly, to help you become truly well-informed about this pivotal figure in American history.
You know, what's fascinating here is just the sheer breadth of his experiences even before his national political career really kicked off.
Right, it wasn't just politics from the start.
Not at all. Imagine flying warplanes, then navigating the complexities of the oil industry.
And co-owning a Major League Baseball team.
Yeah. These weren't just resume bullet points. They provided a really unique foundation. They shaped his character, prepared him for the immense responsibilities ahead.
That's a great point.
And we'll try to connect these diverse early experiences to the larger narrative, his later decisions, his policies.
Helping us understand the evolution of his public persona and his approach as president.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Let's begin at the very start, with his early life and the foundations of his career, spanning from, 1946 to 1994.
Sounds good. George Walker Bush, born July 6, 1946, in New Haven, Connecticut.
Eldest son of George H.W. Bush, the 41st president, of course, and Barbara Pierce.
But raised primarily in Texas, right? Midland and Houston.
Yes, alongside 4 siblings, Jeb, Neil, Marvin, and Dorothy.
And there was that early family tragedy, too.
Yes, the very sad death of his younger sister Robin from leukemia at just 3 years old in 1953. That must have left a lasting mark.
Absolutely. And a very prominent family lineage, of course. His paternal grandfather, Prescott Bush, was a U.S. senator from Connecticut.
A real political dynasty in the making there. His ancestry is quite a mix, too. English, German, with some Dutch, Welsh, Irish, French, Scottish thrown in.
This deep family history, that early exposure to public service, it really created a unique upbringing.
And his education followed that varied path, too.
It did, from public schools in Midland, then the more exclusive Kincaid School in Houston.
And then Phillips Academy in Andover, Massachusetts. That's a pretty elite prep school.
Right. And he showed a lighter side there, played baseball, was even head cheerleader his senior year. There's a yearbook photo to prove it.
Head cheerleader. Then Yale University, graduated in '68 with a BA in history.
And he continued cheerleading there, too, was president of his fraternity, Delta Kappa Epsilon, and a member of Skull and Bones, played rugby as well.
Though he famously described himself as just an average student.
Yeah, his GPA apparently wasn't stellar in the first few years.
But his academic journey didn't stop there. He went on to Harvard Business School from '73 to '75.
Earning an MBA, which is that's a really distinctive credential. He's the only U.S. president to have earned an MBA.
Wow, I didn't realize he was the only one.
Yeah, and this whole varied educational path, elite prep schools, Ivy League undergrad, then the MBA, it really highlights a blend of maybe privilege, but also a clear intention to prepare for a career that could pivot.
Between business and public service.
Exactly. It gave him early exposure to different leadership environments. A powerful foundation, really. Suggests a practical, maybe results-oriented mindset emerging early on.
And beyond education, his personal life saw some big developments, too.
Right. There was a brief engagement in 1967.
To Catherine Lee Wolfman.
But then, a decade later, 1977, he met Laura Welch, school teacher and librarian.
And it was a quick courtship, wasn't it? 3 months.
Yeah, very quick. They married, settled in Midland, Texas. And there was a significant personal change around then, too, his religious conversion.
He left the Episcopal Church, his family's church, to join Laura's United Methodist Church.
And later they welcomed their fraternal twin daughters, Barbara and Jenna, in 1981.
Now, here's a deeply personal story that I think sheds some light on his character. His struggles with alcohol.
Yes, he was quite open about that later. Repeated alcohol abuse before his marriage.
Which led to a DUI arrest in 1976 near Kennebunkport, Maine. Got a fine, brief license suspension.
And he directly attributes giving up alcohol in 1986 to his wife's influence and his faith.
Right. He said, "I believe that God helped open my eyes, which were closing because of booze."
That personal struggle, that transformation, it paints a vivid picture of someone confronting significant personal challenges.
And undergoing a really profound change before entering the main political spotlight. It suggests a capacity for self-reflection, maybe a willingness to change.
That journey definitely speaks to a certain resilience, a trait that would be tested again and again later on.
Absolutely.
And interestingly, his hobbies, his intellectual pursuits, they offer a more nuanced picture too, don't they?
Yeah, he's apparently been an avid reader his whole adult life, liking biographies and histories.
And while president, he read the Bible daily. But interestingly, near the end of his second term, he said he wasn't a literalist about its interpretation.
There's that anecdote, too, from a journalist, Walt Harrington.
Oh, yeah. Recalling a surprisingly diverse collection of books in Bush's home back when he was an oil man. John Fowles, F. Scott Fitzgerald, James Joyce, Gore Vidal alongside the biographies.
Definitely challenges any simple caricature of his intellect.
It does. He also enjoyed cigars and golf. And famously, post-presidency, he really got into painting.
Right, those projects like, out of many. 1. The Portraits of Immigrants and Portraits of Courage, his tribute to veterans.
A whole different side emerged there.
Okay, let's turn to a period that did draw some controversy. His military service.
Right. May 1968, joined the Air Force, commissioned into the Texas Air National Guard.
Flew F-102s out of Houston after his active duty training.
But this period sparked criticism, allegations of favorable treatment because of his father's political standing.
Citing things like low pilot aptitude test scores, irregular attendance.
Yeah. Though the Department of Defense released all his service records in 2005, those questions kind of lingered.
He had that temporary assignment in Alabama while working on a Senate campaign.
And was later suspended from flying for failing a physical exam, honorably discharged in '74.
Despite the controversy, it's a notable fact. He's still the most recent president to have served in the military.
It is. And it's important, I think, to acknowledge both the service and the controversies surrounding it impartially.
Agreed. His business career also laid some significant groundwork.
Definitely. 1977 established Arbusto Energy, a small oil exploration company.
Which later evolved, faced challenges with falling oil prices.
And he eventually joined the board of Hurricane Energy Corporation, and there was that SEC investigation too.
Right, into possible insider trading related to a stock sale.
Which ultimately concluded he didn't have sufficient information for it to count as insider trading, but, the questions definitely garnered attention.
Moving beyond oil, in 1989, he led that group of investors to buy the Texas Rangers.
Yeah, the Major League Baseball team put in a significant amount himself.
Served as managing general partner for 5 years. Apparently quite hands-on, often seen sitting with the fans.
And that venture turned out to be very successful financially for him. Selling his shares in '98 yielded over $15 million.
Wow. He even briefly considered running for commissioner of baseball.
He did, apparently, in the earlier mid-'90s.
So if we connect this, as you said, to the bigger picture, this varied business background, oil, sports,
It gave him significant personal wealth, absolutely, but also invaluable public visibility outside of traditional politics.
experience in high finance,
Yeah.
but also that public-facing role with the Rangers.
Exactly. Engaging directly with the public. It undoubtedly shaped his practical, results-oriented image and maybe prepared him for those broader political roles. Showed an early comfort with public scrutiny.
And before the governorship, he did make those early political forays.
Right. 1978, ran for the U.S. House.
Lost that race. His opponent painted him as out of touch with rural Texans.
Then, a decade later, moved to D.C. to work on his father's '88 presidential campaign. Advisor, media liaison.
Campaigned extensively. And there's that revealing anecdote.
About his father asking him to tell John Sununu, the White House chief of staff, that he needed to resign.
Exactly. A delicate task, showing trust.
Definitely. A sign of his growing role within the family's political sphere.
Which brings us right to that pivotal period. His Texas governorship, 1995 to 2000. This really launched him nationally.
It did. He declared his candidacy for the '94 Texas gubernatorial election. His brother Jeb was running in Florida at the same time.
His campaign was very strategically focused, wasn't it? 4 core themes.
Welfare reform, tort reform, limiting lawsuits, basically crime reduction and education improvement.
And key advisors like Karen Hughes, Joe Albo, Karl Rove, were central.
He faced a popular Democratic incumbent, Ann Richards, a formidable opponent.
And a key campaign promise was signing that concealed carry bill, right? Something Richards had vetoed.
Exactly. And he followed through, signed it into law after becoming governor. There was also that campaign controversy.
The rumor about Richards linked to Rove, though Rove denied it.
Right. But Bush ultimately won pretty decisively, 53.5% to Richards' 45.9%.
And as governor, he immediately made his fiscal stance clear. He used a budget surplus for Texas's largest tax cut at the time.
$2 billion. Signaled that conservative fiscal approach. But his administration also focused on social services.
Extending funding for organizations dealing with substance abuse, domestic violence.
Took a tough stance on crime, too, lowering the age for juveniles to be tried as adults for serious crimes to 14.
And his record on capital punishment is, well, stark. Presided over 152 executions.
More than any previous governor in modern U.S. history. Drew significant criticism, particularly from figures like Helen Prejean,
who argued he didn't give clemency requests serious consideration.
Environmentally, his administration faced criticism too. Texas ranked low in environmental evaluations then.
But supporters would point to his efforts on teacher salaries, improving educational test scores.
And then there's that surprising policy often overlooked. In 1999, he signed a law requiring electric retailers to buy a certain amount of energy from renewable sources, an RPS.
The Renewable Portfolio Standard, which seems kind of counterintuitive for a Texas oilman governor.
It does, but that law really helped propel Texas to become the leading producer of wind-powered electricity in the U.S. eventually.
So putting it all together, his governorship established a clear conservative record, but with these fascinating, sometimes unexpected elements.
Absolutely. It really set the stage for his national ambitions, showed he could win big, push through significant legislation, and craft an image distinct from his father's.
And his success led to that overwhelming re-election in '98.
A record 68% of the vote. First Texas governor ever elected to 2 consecutive 4-year terms.
During that second term, he actively promoted faith-based organizations, enjoyed really high approval ratings.
Consistently high, between 62 and 81%. He even proclaimed a Jesus Day in Texas in 2000.
Which certainly signaled his social conservative credentials.
Right. And this period just solidified his national prominence. After that strong re-election, speculation intensified, and within a year, he decided to go for the 2000 Republican presidential nomination.
Which brings us to the campaigns, starting with that tumultuous 2000 run.
Yeah. In the primary, he initially cultivated that compassionate conservative image.
Trying for a more centrist appeal, maybe, than some rivals?
His platform included restoring integrity and honor to the White House, boosting the military, cutting taxes, improving education, aiding minorities.
By early 2000, the race really boiled down to him and Senator John McCain.
He won Iowa, but then McCain pulled off that upset in New Hampshire, despite Bush being heavily favored.
But he regained momentum quickly, especially after South Carolina.
A primary that became infamous for its negativity, frankly, described by some papers as a smear campaign. But it made him the frontrunner.
Then the general election. His VP pick was a bit of a surprise, wasn't it? Dick Cheney.
It was a real seasoned Washington insider, former White House Chief of Staff, Congressman, Secretary of Defense.
And Cheney had been leading Bush's own VP search committee.
Exactly. A bit ironic. They were nominated at the 2000 RNC. Bush then sharply criticized Al Gore, his opponent, particularly on gun control and taxes.
Setting up that clear ideological contrast.
Definitely.
And then the election itself. One of the most disputed, controversial victories in American history.
Oh, absolutely. November 7th, the initial returns showed Bush winning Florida, giving him the presidency.
But it was incredibly close, razor-thin margin.
So close, it triggered an automatic recount under Florida law.
The initial machine recount still favored Bush, but then it just descended into legal battles for a month.
All the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. And on December 9th, the court issued that highly controversial Bush v. Gore ruling.
It reversed the Florida Supreme Court's order for a statewide hand recount.
Their argument was that using different standards in different counties violated the Equal Protection Clause.
So the machine recount stood. Bush won Florida by just 537 votes.
Out of nearly 6 million cast. Incredible.
And despite getting over 500,000 fewer popular votes nationwide than Gore,
he won the election with 271 electoral votes to Gore's 266.
Making him the first president since Benjamin Harrison in 1888 to win with fewer popular votes.
Which immediately raises that crucial question. How did such a contentious win, losing the popular vote, shape the narrative and the immediate challenges for his administration.
That legitimacy question lingered, didn't it, even after the Supreme Court decision?
Absolutely. It profoundly influenced how his presidency was perceived right from day one.
Okay, fast forward 4 years to 2004. His re-election bid.
A very different scenario this time. He commanded broad support within the Republican Party, no primary challenge.
Ken Millman managed the campaign, Karl Rove devising strategy.
And the platform emphasized strong commitment to the ongoing wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, support for the Patriot Act,
A push for constitutional amendments on abortion and same-sex marriage.
reforming Social Security with private accounts, creating an ownership society, opposing mandatory carbon controls.
But also, interestingly, calling for that guest worker program for immigrants.
Yeah, which actually drew criticism from some conservatives within his own party.
The campaign dynamics in '04 were incredibly intense.
Oh, very. The Bush campaign advertised heavily against Democrats, mainly Senator John Kerry, who became the nominee.
Kerry and Democrats attacked Bush on Iraq, the economy, job growth.
And the Bush campaign painted Kerry as a staunch liberal, attacking his perceived inconsistencies on the Iraq War, questioning his decisiveness for the war on terror.
There was also that controversy surrounding the CIA leadership around then.
Right. George Tenet resigned. Bush nominated Porter Goss. Reports surfaced that the White House ordered Goss to purge officers deemed disloyal.
Leading to many senior agents being fired or quitting. Accusations even flew about the CIA leaking info to influence the election.
Despite all that, and the charged climate, the election outcome was a clear victory for Bush this time.
Carried 31 states, 286 electoral votes.
And crucially, he won an absolute majority of the popular vote, 50.7% to Kerry's 48.3%.
Effectively correcting that popular vote deficit from 2000.
Which is fascinating, right? That shift from a contested popular vote loss to a clear popular vote win amidst ongoing wars and intense domestic debates.
It really demonstrates an evolution in his political appeal, maybe how he navigated a deeply divided nation in those extraordinary times.
Rallied support around his leadership in a crisis period.
Okay, now we arrive at the presidency itself, 2001 to 2009, a period just unequivocally defined by crisis, policy, and controversy.
Absolutely. He came in with an ambitious domestic agenda, but his priorities were, as sources say, significantly altered after 9/11.
Fundamentally altered. His presidency became largely defined by the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq.
And huge domestic debates, too. Immigration, healthcare, Social Security, economic policy, treatment of detainees.
His approval ratings were a roller coaster. Started near 60%,
Surged to 90% after 9/11.
but then began that steady decline, hitting lows like 19% by the end of his second term.
And adding to all that, the U.S. entered the longest post-WWII recession in December 2007.
Just further complicating those final years.
Scholars often call this period the most transformative of his presidency. That immediate, profound pivot from domestic policy to national security post-9/11.
It reshaped everything, dictated key decisions, ultimately defined much of his legacy.
And shifted the fiscal landscape, too, from surplus to significant debt due to war costs and tax cuts.
Let's delve into that domestic policy landscape, starting with the economy, 2001 to 2008.
He took office during a recession, remember. The dot-com bubble had burst, then 9/11 hit the economy hard, too.
And his administration saw a massive increase in federal spending, up 66% overall.
While revenues increased much slower, about 24%, defense spending more than doubled. Domestic spending, Medicare, Social Security all saw huge increases.
More spending increase than any president since LBJ, apparently.
A central pillar of his economic plan was those big tax cuts. The government actually had a surplus in 2000.
$237 billion. His budget initially projected a $5.6 trillion surplus over 10 years.
But he successfully pushed for that $1.35 trillion tax cut program, one of the largest ever, arguing the surplus was the people's money.
Despite warnings from Fed Chair Alan Greenspan about a recession, Bush argued the cuts would stimulate the economy. Another cut passed in 2003.
In terms of actual economic performance, while GDP growth averaged around 2.1% annually, which was less than past cycles.
And the stock market started high, peaked in '07, then plummeted by the end of his term. One of only a few presidents to leave the market lower.
The fiscal consequences were pretty stark. That projected surplus vanished, replaced by significant deficits and soaring national debt.
Gross debt more than doubled from 2000 to late 2008, hitting $11.3 trillion.
Largely attributed to those tax cuts and increased national security spending. Even then, Senator Obama criticized raising the debt ceiling in '06 as a sign of leadership failure.
Unemployment fluctuated, rose, fell, then climbed again to 7.2% by the end. Median household income actually dropped. Adjusted for inflation and poverty increased.
And then came the 2008 financial crisis.
December 2007, the start of the longest recession since WWII. Triggered by the housing market correction, subprime mortgages, soaring oil prices.
The impact on jobs was devastating. Hundreds of thousands lost each month in late 2008. 2.6 million jobs lost by year-end.
The administration responded with a $170 billion stimulus package, rebate checks, tax breaks.
Though, interestingly, they had pushed for more regulation of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac back in 2003.
But it died in the Senate. Concerns about government intervention.
The crisis escalated dramatically in September '08. Federal takeover of Fannie and Freddie, Lehman Brothers bankruptcy, the AIG bailout.
Declared the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression. The administration then proposed TARP, the Troubled Asset Relief Program.
That massive rescue plan to buy up toxic mortgage assets. Some later argued more proactive regulatory oversight could have helped.
Okay, shifting gears slightly. Education and public health initiatives.
He pursued several educational agendas, increased funding for NSF and NIH initially, though NIH faced later cuts, focused on science and math education.
And a cornerstone was No Child Left Behind, NCLBA, signed early 2002 with broad bipartisan support, even Ted Kennedy.
Right. Aimed to measure and close achievement gaps, give options to students in low-performing schools, target funding to low-income schools.
Supporters cited score improvements. Critics argued it was underfunded, and the focus on high-stakes testing was counterproductive.
In public health, they launched a national strategy for pandemic influenza in 2005.
And after re-election, he signed the Medicare Modernization Act of 2003, created Medicare Part D, the prescription drug benefit.
Hailed by some as the greatest expansion in America's welfare state in 40 years, though with massive projected costs. AARP endorsed it. Bush said it gave seniors better choices.
But he later vetoed the SCIP expansion for children's health care, argued it was a move toward socialized medicine.
And he signed GINA in 2008, protecting against genetic discrimination in insurance and employment.
On Social Security reform.
Yeah.
That was a major push at the start of his second term.
Yeah. Facing record deficit projections, he made it the centerpiece of his domestic agenda, despite big congressional opposition.
Talked about potential bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Proposed partial privatization, personal accounts, diverting payroll taxes into investments.
Democrats strongly opposed. He went on that 60-day national tour, Conversations on Social Security.
But support declined, didn't it? And House Republicans dropped it. Then Hurricane Katrina hit, further diminishing his prospects.
Environmental and energy policies also generated a lot of debate. Right at the start, he opposed the Kyoto Protocol.
Citing exemptions for many countries, cost concerns, and the fact the Senate had already voted 95 others against it years earlier.
Signed orders to streamline energy projects, proposed the Clear Skies Act in 2003 for emissions trading.
But critics argued it would weaken the Clean Air Act. It failed in committee.
But then, in a move praised by conservationists, he created that huge Papahanaumokuakea Marine National Monument in Hawaii in 2006.
Protecting millions of acres, thousands of species, hailed for foresight and leadership.
On climate change itself, he acknowledged global warming was real and serious, but questioned the cause, man-made or naturally caused.
His administration faced criticism for allegedly misinforming the public, not doing enough on carbon emissions.
Energy-wise, 2006 State of the Union declared America is addicted to oil, launched the Advanced Energy Initiative for research.
Renewed pledges in 2007 to cut fossil fuel use, boost alternatives. Lifted the executive ban on offshore drilling in 2008 amid high gas prices.
Though that was largely symbolic, stressed the need for domestic production. And in 2008, committed $2 billion to an international clean energy fund.
Another big domestic debate, stem cell research.
Right. He supported adult stem cell research, but opposed embryonic stem cell research, especially federal funding involving embryo destruction, which was already banned by the Dickey-Wicker Amendment.
In August 2001, he signed that order, lifting the ban for 71 existing stem cell lines.
But scientists questioned if those lines were adequate, and there were safety concerns about how they were cultured.
Then, July 2006, he used his first-ever veto to reject the Stem Cell Research Enhancement Act,
which would have repealed Dickey-Wicker and allowed federal funding for research using destroyed embryos, a significant stand for him.
Immigration debates were also front and center. Huge influx of immigrants, nearly half illegal, from 2000-2005.
In 2006, Bush pushed Congress for that temporary guest worker program for the millions already here. Also sought more border security funds, deployed the National Guard.
Then, in 2007, he strongly backed the Comprehensive Immigration Reform Act, a bipartisan effort.
Really ambitious. Legalization path, guest worker program, border enforcement, green card reforms.
Bush argued it was necessary, that lack of legal status hurt millions, penalized employers. Insisted it wasn't amnesty.
But it caused a massive rift in the Republican Party. Most conservatives hated the legalization parts. The bill died in the Senate.
Bush expressed disappointment. His administration then focused on enforcement measures not needing legislation.
And that interesting claim later by Israeli PM Olmert about Bush offering to take 100,000 Palestinian refugees if a peace deal was reached.
Wow. Then, Hurricane Katrina, August 2005. A truly catastrophic event.
Devastated the Gulf Coast, especially New Orleans, after the levees failed.
Bush declared emergencies, authorized FEMA aid. DHS Secretary Chertoff declared it an incident of national significance.
National Guard went in, Bush toured, said recovery efforts were not enough, but the criticism was swift and brutal.
For the inadequate response, right? Allegations of incompetent FEMA leadership, resources devoted to Iraq.
Critics said he didn't act on warnings. Amidst it all, Bush publicly accepted full responsibility for the federal government's failures.
Many argue Katrina was a political tipping point for him. Public perception shifted dramatically.
Absolutely. Later in 2006 came the controversy over the midterm dismissal of U.S. attorneys.
7 of them fired. The White House said it was for poor performance.
But it led to Attorney General Alberto Gonzales resigning, along with others. Congress subpoenaed White House aides Mears and Bolton.
Bush invoked executive privilege, told them not to testify. Justice Department backed him legally.
Investigations focused on whether the positions were used for political advantage. Officials resign rather than testify. Mears and Bolton held in contempt of Congress.
Years later, a DOJ investigator concluded politics played a part in some firings, calling them inappropriately political, but found insufficient evidence for criminal charges.
So looking back at this whole domestic policy period, massive tax cuts, no child left behind, then Katrina, the financial crisis.
It was just a whirlwind of ambition, achievement, and incredibly intense criticism. These issues were so complex, so charged, you can see how they shaped public opinion.
Definitely. Now, shifting to foreign policy. Before 9/11, his platform was interesting stronger ties with Latin America, especially Mexico, less nation building.
Pursued missile defense, advocated for China joining the WTO.
In his second term, the emphasis shifted to improving relations with European nations. Appointed Karen Hughes for global PR, lauded pro-democracy movements in Georgia, Ukraine.
He had some significant international engagements. That 2006 trip to India was a big deal.
Focused on nuclear energy, counterterrorism, led to the civil nuclear agreement, a real shift from Clinton's approach after India's nuclear tests.
With Russia, signed the SORT Treaty, but also withdrew the U.S. from the ABM Treaty.
The Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty, first major arms treaty withdrawal post-WWII. Putin called it a mistake. Their relationship cooled over time.
On Israel and Palestinians, he took a careful line. Denounced Arafat for supporting violence, but sponsored dialogues between Sharon and Abbas. Supported Sharon's disengagement plan.
After that 2001 Hainan Island incident with China, he voiced support for Taiwan's defense. Authorized interventions in Haiti and Liberia to protect U.S. interests, condemned Darfur killings as genocide, but opposed ICC referral.
And then Albania. That 2007 visit was remarkable.
First U.S. president to visit, greeted with incredible enthusiasm. Street named after him, statue unveiled. He voiced strong support for Kosovo's independence there,
which pleased Albanians but strained relations with Serbia, contributing to the embassy torching in Belgrade.
He also pushed hard for Ukraine and Georgia to join NATO in 2008, despite Russian opposition, condemned Russia's actions during the Georgia crisis that summer.
Famously saying bullying and intimidation are not acceptable ways to conduct foreign policy in the 21st century.
But of course, the defining moment, the absolute turning point, was September 11, 2001.
The attacks just decisively reshaped everything, pivoted the entire administration toward national security.
That evening, he addressed the nation, promised a strong response, emphasized unity. 3 days later, visited Ground Zero.
That iconic image, standing on the rubble with the megaphone.
I can hear you. The rest of the world hears you. And the people who knock these buildings down will hear all of us soon. Powerful moment.
Then the September 20 speech, condemning bin Laden, al-Qaeda, issuing the ultimatum to the Taliban in Afghanistan.
Hand over the terrorists or share in their fate. The Taliban refused. It's worth noting, the presence of U.S. troops in Saudi Arabia post-Gulf War was a stated motivation for 9/11. The U.S. withdrew most troops from there in 2003.
Yeah, 9/11 truly altered his presidency's trajectory. That ground zero moment became symbolic of his early crisis leadership, and it led directly to the War on Terror.
His September 20 speech declared it begins with al-Qaeda, but it does not end there. Then the 2002 State of the Union address introduced the axis of evil.
North Korea, Iran, Ba'athist, Iraq, arming to threaten the peace, posing a grave and growing danger.
And the administration asserted that intention to wage preemptive war, preventative war, the Bush Doctrine.
Aimed at protecting the U.S., but it definitely weakened that initial post-9/11 international support, didn't it?
It did. As the Iraq War continued, dissent and criticism grew, protests erupted worldwide. That 2006 National Intelligence Estimate concluded the war had become a cause célèbre for jihadists.
Fueling recruitment, essentially.
That was the argument.
The Afghanistan invasion began quickly, October 7, 2001. U.S. and British bombing campaigns.
Northern Alliance troops entered Kabul by November. Goals: defeat Taliban, drive out al-Qaeda, capture leaders.
By December 2001, the Pentagon reported the Taliban largely defeated, but the war would continue. The UN installed the Afghan Transitional Administration.
But a major setback was bin Laden escaping from Tora Bora in December 2001.
Which the administration later admitted was due to failure to commit enough U.S. ground troops. He wasn't killed until 2011.
And despite initial success in Afghanistan, by early 2003, the Taliban was regrouping. The insurgency grew.
Operations like Red Wings failed in 2005. By 2006, the Taliban seemed larger, fiercer, and better organized.
Leading Bush to send 3,500 more troops in March 2007, a sign of the growing challenge there.
Which brings us to the incredibly consequential Iraq invasion in 2003. Starting with that 2002 State of the Union, Bush focused on Iraq.
Part of the axis of evil, possessing WMDs, posing that grave and growing danger.
Late 2002, CIA reports asserted Saddam intended to reconstitute nuclear programs, hadn't accounted for biochem weapons.
And this became a huge point of criticism. Later contentions the administration manipulated or exaggerated the WMD threat and evidence.
Late 2002, early 2003, Bush pushed the UN to enforce disarmament mandates. Diplomatic crisis ensued.
UN weapons inspectors were advised by the U.S. to leave just days before the invasion, despite wanting more time. The U.S. dropped its bid for a UN resolution authorizing force due to strong opposition.
And the administration's claim the Iraq War was part of the War on Terror was questioned by many analysts.
Nevertheless, March 20, 2003, the coalition of the willing, over 20 nations led by the U.S. and UK, invaded Iraq.
The Iraqi military was quickly defeated. Baghdad fell April 9th.
May 1, 2003, Bush declared the end of major combat operations under that mission accomplished banner.
Boosted his popularity initially, but that speech was later heavily criticized as premature.
As U.S. and allied forces faced a growing, brutal insurgency led by sectarian groups.
From 2004 to 2007, the situation deteriorated. Some called it a full-scale civil war. Criticism mounted, demands for troop withdrawal grew.
The 2006 Iraq Study Group report called the situation grave and deteriorating. Bush admitted strategic mistakes but maintained he wouldn't change the overall strategy. Hundreds of thousands of Iraqis died.
Amidst the violence, there were steps toward a new government. Elections in January 2005.
First free elections in 50 years. Led to Talabani as president, al-Maliki as PM, a constitution was approved by referendum later that year.
But challenges continued. January 2007, Bush announced the surge.
21,500 more troops, plus jobs programs, reconstruction funds. In May 2007, he vetoed a bill setting a withdrawal deadline.
By July 2008, troop deaths were at their lowest. Stability had increased somewhat, attributed to the surge, and Bush began withdrawing some forces.
Then came that shoe-throwing incident during his last visit in December 2008.
The Iraqi journalist yelling it was a farewell kiss for the widows and orphans. Bush ducked.
Post-presidency, that 2010 report claimed the administration made over 900 false pretenses about the Iraqi threat to justify the war.
So, connecting this back, the decisions around Iraq, the intelligence, the mission accomplished moment, the surge that profoundly shaped his presidency, global politics, domestic trust.
Absolutely. Raises huge questions about preemptive war, nation building, and their long-term consequences.
And alongside the wars came dramatic shifts in surveillance policy post-9/11.
Bush issued that executive order authorizing the president's surveillance program, NSA monitoring communications between suspected terrorists abroad and parties in the U.S. without a FISA warrant.
A significant departure. DOJ initially questioned legality, but was reauthorized based on the authorization for use of military force.
Highly controversial. Critics, the American Bar Association, argued it was illegal. A district court ruled it unconstitutional in 2006.
But that was vacated on appeal due to lack of standing.
January 2007, AG Gonzalez said it wouldn't be reauthorized by the president, would get judicial oversight. Then the NSA launched the replacement program, PRISM.
Which wasn't revealed publicly until 2013.
Related to this were the interrogation policies, the torture memos.
Bush authorized the CIA to use enhanced interrogation techniques, EATs, including waterboarding. Critics, like Obama later, called it torture.
Between 2002 and 2003, the CIA deemed these legal based on secret DOJ opinions, arguing terror detainees weren't protected by Geneva Conventions, calling the ban an infringement on presidential war powers.
The CIA used these techniques on key suspects under the authority of the Bybee Memo, though that memo was later withdrawn.
The Army field manuals actually forbid such tactics, stating they elicit unreliable information, but the Bush administration believed they provided critical information to save lives.
Critics, like ex-CIA officer Bob Baer, said info obtained was suspect. You can get anyone to confess to anything if a torture's bad enough.
October 2006, Bush signed the Military Commissions Act, allowed prosecuting unlawful enemy combatants by military commission, not standard trials, denied habeas corpus, barred torture, but let the president define torture.
Then in March 2008, he vetoed a bill to expand congressional oversight and ban techniques like waterboarding, not in the Army field manual. Said it would take away a valuable tool.
April 2009, the ACLU won release of secret memos authorizing the tactics. One detailed waterboarding, called it torture in a footnote, said the CIA's version was far more intense than DOJ authorized.
So that balance between national security and civil liberties became a defining, intensely debated challenge of his presidency: surveillance, interrogation. The controversy reverberates today.
It raises profound ethical, legal questions about executive power in wartime.
Shifting focus again, North Korea. Bush publicly condemned Kim Jong-il, part of the axis of evil.
Said the U.S. wouldn't permit the world's most dangerous regimes to threaten us with the world's most destructive weapons. Both countries soon walked away from a 1994 agreement.
North Korea's nuclear test in October 2006 complicated things further. Bush condemned it, reaffirmed commitment to a nuclear-free peninsula.
Warned that any transfer of nuclear material by North Korea would be considered a grave threat.
But diplomacy did yield some temporary progress. May 2007, North Korea agreed to shut down reactors pending release of frozen funds after three-way talks with China.
September 2007, they agreed to disclose and dismantle programs. But by May 2009, they had restarted the program, threatened South Korea. Post-presidency, Bush continued to criticize their leadership.
He also expanded economic sanctions on Syria, signed the Syria Accountability Act in 2003.
Treasury later froze assets of Syrian institutions suspected of WMD proliferation supporting terrorism. Also froze assets of Lebanese, Syrian figures accused of undermining Lebanon's political process.
Okay, amidst all these complex security and diplomatic issues, one truly remarkable achievement stands out on the foreign policy front.
PEPFR, the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief,
announced in his 2003 State of the Union, a 5-year, $15 billion strategy for global emergency AIDS relief.
Directly supported life-saving antiretroviral treatment for millions worldwide. By 2013, the U.S. had spent about $44 billion, estimated to have saved 5 million lives.
The New York Times correspondent Peter Baker wrote, Bush did more to stop AIDS and more to help Africa than any president before or since.
By 2023, PEPFAR was estimated to have saved over 25 million lives. Hugely impactful, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, often called his greatest accomplishment.
And what's fascinating is the near-universal consensus on this across the political spectrum.
It really stands out as a monumental humanitarian achievement, a testament to targeted foreign aid. Raises that question. How can such successes be replicated in other global health challenges, demonstrating leadership beyond military means?
His presidency also had a few notable security incidents involving him personally.
February 2001, someone fired shots near the White House. Pickett was arrested. May 2005, that grenade attack in Tbilisi, Georgia.
Thrown towards the podium near Bush and Saakashvili. Didn't detonate because it was wrapped tightly in a handkerchief. Assailant arrested later, killed an agent during capture, got life.
And the 2008 Baghdad shoe-throwing incident, of course.
In terms of judicial appointments, he left a lasting impact, especially on the Supreme Court.
July 2005, Justice O'Connor retired. Bush nominated John Roberts. But then Chief Justice Rehnquist died in September.
So Bush withdrew Roberts' nomination for O'Connor's seat, nominated him for Chief Justice instead, quickly confirmed.
To fill O'Connor's seat, he then nominated Harriet Miers, White House counsel. But she withdrew after facing significant opposition questioning her qualifications.
Finally, October 2005, he nominated Samuel Alito, confirmed January 2006.
So 2 Supreme Court appointments, Roberts and Alito, plus 62 judges to federal appeals courts and 261 to district courts. A significant judicial legacy.
Let's talk about his cultural and political image, that folksy American cowboy persona.
Yeah, his West Texas upbringing, the accent, vacations at the ranch, country metaphors. It all contributed. Piers Morgan said people looked at him and thought, John Wayne.
He was often parodied, wasn't he? For linguistic errors, the Bushisms.
He was. Interestingly, compared to his father, who sometimes seemed to lack an overarching theme, George W. Bush embraced larger visions, was seen as a man of bigger ideas, bigger risks.
And the perception of his intelligence. Tony Blair called the dumb caricature ludicrous, said Bush was very smart.
David Brooks suggested he was 60 IQ points smarter in private, put on a Texas act so people wouldn't think he was smarter than them. An interesting theory.
His job approval ratings in the U.S., as we said, were a real roller coaster.
Started near 60%, soared to 90% after 9/11, stayed high for months, above 50% most of his first term, Times Person of the Year twice.
Strong Republican support initially, though it waned later over spending, immigration, Middle East issues. That 2004 survey shows strong support in the military.
Approval surged again at the start of the Iraq War, 74%, but then began the steady decline after December 2004.
Post-re-election, criticism mounted over Iraq, Katrina, prisoner abuse, NSA surveillance, Guantanamo.
Democrats regained Congress in the 2006 midterms, the thumping, as Bush called it. His approval averaged just 37% in 2006, lowest since Truman for a second-term president at that point. Hovered in the mid-30s most of 2007.
By early 2008, final year, it hit that low of 19%, largely losing Republican support.
Leading to his quote about not giving a damn about the polls, making decisions based on principle. There were even calls for impeachment.
Though most polls showed Americans wouldn't support it, arguments centered on NSA surveillance, Iraq justification, Geneva Conventions.
Dennis Kucinich introduced articles of impeachment, but Speaker Pelosi said it was off the table. April 2008, disapproval hit a record 69% in Gallup history. Just before the 2008 election, approval remained at record lows, 19-20%.
His final Gallup rating in Jan. 09 was 34%, similar to Carter and Truman. A CBS NYT poll put it at 22%, lowest ever recorded for an outgoing president.
While domestic perceptions struggled, foreign perceptions were often even worse. Widely criticized internationally, targeted by anti-war, anti-globalization movements.
Views even in close allies like France were more negative than for most previous presidents. Though he had close personal ties with leaders like Tony Blair, Vicente Fox.
But others, like Karzai, Chavez, were openly critical. Tensions grew with Putin. That 2006 survey found most in 18 countries had unfavorable opinions, saw his administration as negative for world security.
Pew reported global attitudes toward the U.S. became less favorable during his presidency. A 2007 Arab Nations survey found him the most disliked world leader.
But then, the exception, Albania, that June 2007 visit, greeted with extraordinary enthusiasm.
Albania supported U.S. foreign policy, had troops in Iraq, Afghanistan, the street named after him, the statue. A unique pocket of warmth.
A real anomaly in the global picture at the time.
Okay, let's transition to his post-presidency, 2009 to now. A distinctly different chapter.
Definitely. After Obama's inauguration, he returned to Texas. Ranch first, then settled in Dallas.
Made regular low-key appearances. Coin toss at the Cowboys Stadium, throwing first pitches at Rangers games, even the 2023 World Series.
Had successful heart treatment in 2013. Issued that statement condemning the Dallas police shooting violence in 2016.
He's kept a relatively low public profile, especially regarding direct political commentary.
Has spoken in favor of women's global participation. In his first post-presidency speech, said, Obama deserves my silence. Appeared on Colbert Report praising troops, attended Ted Kennedy's funeral, even did motivational speaking.
Visited Fort Hood victims privately after the shooting.
And he became an author. Decision Points, his memoirs, came out in 2010.
Identified keeping the country safe as his biggest accomplishment, failing on Social Security reform as his greatest failure. Notably defended waterboarding KSM, said, I'd do it again to save lives.
Also wrote a foreword for an economics book, published 41, A Portrait of My Father in 2014, and Portraits of Courage in 2017, featuring his veteran paintings.
Politically, his post-presidency has been nuanced, often neutral. Didn't attend the 2012 RNC physically, just appeared in a video endorsing Romney.
Explained on Leno he wouldn't criticize his successor, wasn't good for the country. But he did vocally disagree with Obama pulling troops from Iraq in 2011, called it a strategic blunder.
In 2015, Pence said boots on the ground were needed to defeat ISIS, contrasting with Obama, but declined to comment on Iran specifically.
The 2016 election was tricky for him. Campaigned for Jeb early on, but refused to endorse Trump, didn't attend the RNC.
Reportedly told aides, "I'm worried that I will be the last Republican president." Left his ballot blank, didn't vote for Trump.
Though he, his father, and Jeb did call Trump to congratulate him after the win, attended Trump's inauguration, the famous poncho meme moment, allegedly called the ceremony some weird shit.
August 2017, he and his father jointly condemned the Unite the Right rally violence. Then that powerful October 2017 speech.
Noting, bigotry seems emboldened, politics vulnerable to conspiracy theories and outright fabrication, urging opposition to democratic threats, widely seen as denouncing Trump without naming him.
Eulogized John McCain in 2018. Delivered his father's eulogy later that year, sharing those last words, "I love you too." Visited South Korea in 2019 to honor former President Roh Moo-hyun, drew his portrait.
June 2020, statement on George Floyd's murder. Anguished, disturbed by the injustice and fear, time to examine our tragic failures. Attended John Lewis's funeral.
Didn't endorse in 2020, wrote in Condoleezza Rice, congratulated Biden-Harris, called the election fundamentally fair, attended Biden's inauguration.
After the January 6th Capitol attack, joined other former presidents in denouncing it as an insurrection, like something from a banana republic.
Opposed Biden's Afghanistan withdrawal, worried about creating vacuum, called it a mistake. Gave that moving speech at the Flight 93 memorial on the 9/11 20th anniversary.
Condemned the 2024 assassination attempt on Trump. Didn't attend the 24 RNC, no endorsement. Congratulated Trump fans after their win. Attended Trump's second inauguration.
What's really fascinating, though, is that tradition of former presidents coming together despite political differences.
It is powerful. His collaborations with Bill Clinton on the Haiti Fund, with Obama and others on the One America appeal for hurricane victims.
Obama calling him after bin Laden was killed. Joining the Obamas for the 9/11 10th anniversary.
And that noted, good-natured friendship with Michelle Obama. Forever seatmates, his partner in crime at formers' gatherings. The mint passing incidents became famous.
It really raises that question about the evolving role of former presidents, the camaraderie that can form across party lines.
It does. And his post-presidency also saw that serious artistic pursuit, painting, inspired by Churchill.
Subjects ranging from people, dogs, still life, portraits of world leaders like Putin and Blair, portraits of courage donating proceeds, drew that portrait of Roh Moo-hyun.
A whole unexpected dimension.
So wrapping up, this deep dive leaves us with a truly complex, still evolving legacy for George W. Bush.
Constantly debated, reevaluated. Supporters credit his counterterrorism policies with preventing another 9/11, praise PEPFR, Medicare Part D.
Critics point to the Iraq War, the WMD justification failure, tax policy, Katrina response, climate change stance, handling of the 2008 financial crisis, even accusations of war crimes from figures like Ben Ferencz.
Despite the divisions, many historians call him one of the most consequential presidents. Julian Zelizer called his presidency transformative, predicting his perception would become more substantive over time.
Brian Williams called him most noteworthy president since FDR, citing the Patriot Act's expansion of executive power, largest tax cuts since Reagan, biggest government expansion, Homeland Security since the Great Society. Widely portrayed in media, known by nicknames like Dubia.
Historical reception has been dynamic. Scholarly rankings initially placed him low, like that 2010 Siena survey ranking him 39th. Bush himself said history would judge, he wouldn't be around for it.
But his ranking improved in C-SPAN's 2021 survey, up to 29th.
And U.S. public opinion has significantly improved since 2009. Gallup noted views becoming more positive. By 2013, his favorables outweighed unfavorables for the first time post-presidency.
A 2018 CNN poll found 61% held a favorable view, widely interpreted as Democrats viewing him more favorably in contrast to Trump, an assessment Bush himself reportedly quipped about. "Trump makes me look pretty good."
Foreign perceptions, though, largely remain highly unfavorable. Remember that how can 59,054,087 people be so dumb? headline, especially high unfavorables in Muslim-majority countries.
Despite that, some unique honors. That street in Tirana, Albania, the Estonian Order of the Cross of Terra Mariana for NATO expansion, 2 elementary schools named after him.
So the deep dive on George W. Bush, it really leaves us with this fascinatingly complex, evolving picture, doesn't it? What stands out to you about how perceptions have shifted domestically and internationally, especially recently?
It really is a testament to how history is a living thing, always being reevaluated, seen through new lenses, new comparisons.
Absolutely. This deep dive truly illustrates that leadership in times of crisis leaves an indelible mark, and understanding a presidency means looking beyond just the immediate reactions. Bush's time was one of immense challenge, profound change.
And the varied opinions show that dynamic nature of how history is written and rewritten.
Exactly. From historians initially ranking him low to a public whose views softened, especially compared to later figures, it's fascinating. His decision points, tax cuts, global conflicts, PEPFAR had far-reaching consequences we still feel today, at home and globally, a testament to the immense weight of the office.
So, considering all those dramatic shifts, global events, public sentiment throughout his career, what do you think is the single most enduring, yet perhaps overlooked aspect of George W. Bush's legacy that future generations will continue to grapple with and learn from?